Hey, welcome to the October gathering of Cloudy Nights EAA Buddies. This is our group that gets together on a monthly basis. And you might remember that we began back, I think it was in March, doing the Messier Marathon together. And we stayed up all night and it really bonded us. And we just said, hey, why don't we do this once a month? And not only will it help us plan for the next Messier Marathon, but it'll also give guys a chance to share the stuff that they're learning. And then for the rest of us, it'll help us to be able to learn from the folks who are sharing, and we can ask questions. And boy, it has created a really great camaraderie, a forum in which people can share both, like I say, the stuff they're learning and also ask questions. So we're going to get started tonight. And I think, Mike, you've kind of kicked us off, and tonight's broadcast, tonight's meeting especially favors the West Coast of North America for the prime time of astronomy. So Mike's already going here on an image. Mike, kind of orient us and give us your spiel again, catch us up on what you're using for the folks that are new, and take maybe 5 or 7 minutes, something like that. Mike, take it away.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I should have had the image of my, let me put my scope up here. I'll show you guys exactly what I'm using. I'm using a 6-inch f4 imaging Newtonian. So just a really simple little guy here that I got for just a couple $100 on the Cloudy Nights Classifieds. And it's on a Celestron Evolution Alt-Az mount that I have installed on a Celestron HD wedge. And so that's the wedge stays outside polar line permanently, and so the only thing I have to set up at night is the evolution and the scope itself. And then I have it set all up on my spare no expense cinder block pier here. That's right behind my house.
Mike, it even has storage. You even have storage vehicles in there.
That was an added feature. I did have to pay extra for that, but it works really well, so I'm glad I sprung for it. And yeah, so I have various and sundry stuck in there, and then I'm sitting, of course, behind this table behind there.
Mike, and it reminds me of those cubbies that you can buy in the Next domes, you know, that you see on the big videos, except you've got storage in your blocks.
Yeah, no, it works. It works great. And the blocks are all glued together with construction adhesive, but I don't have them glued to the pad. So worst case, I need to move it. I can just bring a 2-wheel dolly over and I can move the whole pier. But it just stays in place. The wedge stays right where it is, stays permanently polar aligned, which is kind of the pain in the neck about setting up every night. So I can just leave it polar aligned. Every once in a while I adjust it and I tweak it, but I just leave it set up outside. And so the mount and the scope are the only thing that comes in and out. And so that's what I'm using. And then up here I have the 533 color stuck in the focuser. It's either that or a 183 mono that I use for my my galaxy hunting when I'm going for the really faint, fuzzy, small stuff. And you can see on the side here is my Celestron StarSense auto-align system, which I just love the heck out of. It saves me so much time and frustration. I never even have to go near the eyepiece to align the whole scope up, and it's just done automatically. So I really love that. So yeah, so that's my setup there. And right now I've just started to stack about 12 minutes ago on the Lagoon Nebula.
It's beautiful.
I am in, for those who don't know, I'm just outside of the Death Valley area. I'm about 25 miles southeast of Death Valley National Park, about 80 miles due west of Las Vegas. So some pretty dark skies out here. Well, when I don't have to have a light turned on me, but they're pretty dark skies out here. And tonight, got lucky the last couple of nights. The smoke has blown away mostly. It's still around a little bit, so the images may be a little fuzzier than normal, but we've been having a lot of smoke, as Gary can attest to. He's down in San Diego, just a few hours south of me, and well, he's clouded out tonight, so even just a few hours drive makes a big difference. I have no clouds here, but we've just had a lot of smoke this from the fires that are burning on the southern Sierras. And so yes, that is my my setup. And so right now I'm just doing 60-second exposures, sub exposures on this, and I've got 13 of them stacked so far. And So I'm using SharpCap, obviously. You can see here to do the capture the images and stack the images from my camera. I am using Stellarium to control my scope. So I just go in here to Stellarium and click on an object and hit Control 1, and the scope moves over to it. So that is what I'm doing for that. I use CPWI to control the scope. Instead of using a hand controller, since I already have a computer out here, I might as well just use CPWI, which is a lot better than a hand controller. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much what I use when I'm doing my YouTube live streams. I use OBS, Open Broadcast Studio, and YouTube to do my broadcasting, which tonight I don't have to use because this is not my gig, which means it's a bit easier for me. So I just get to join. I don't have to lead it. I don't have to set it up and be responsible for anything except being a cut up now and again. But
which you do rather well, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. So yeah. I don't know what else there is I can say. I don't really have much I'm working on currently. I basically took the summer off between wind and smoke and just my own schedule this summer. I just have, this is my first broadcast since July, I think, probably July. So I haven't been out here much at all. So today was quite a marathon getting everything on the computers updated. But
we're glad you did. You have some questions from the studio audience. Mike,
okay.
Got one question from Jeff Horn. If you're using any kind of filters.
Negatory. No, I don't like using filters. Obviously, out here, I don't need to use any light pollution filters. So no, I try and stay away from them. I've tried using a UHC filter, ultra high contrast, which is a narrow band filter. But I just found that all it did was made everything darker and meant my exposures had to go up. So out here, because I have great skies, I don't really have to use them, so I choose not to.
Gotcha. And then Michael Keefe was asking if you had any issues with CPWI disconnecting.
No, I don't have any issues with CPI disconnecting because I don't use Celestron's communication to connect to it. I'm not connecting via the hand control with the USB, and I'm not connecting wirelessly. I am using the homebrew DIY Ethernet connector that plugs directly into the Evolution, and a Cat5 cable between my computer and the little box. So once I installed that, I used to have those kinds of problems. I was having disconnects with the hand controller. I was having disconnects with CPWI. It didn't seem to make matter whether I was connecting via USB through the hand controller or connecting wirelessly through the built-in Wi-Fi in the Evolution. It still happened fairly frequently. The only thing that has gotten rid of the problem has been the use of the DIY homebrew boxes that Mark Lord has developed for us, and they're all over the Celestron specific forums on cloudy nights if you don't know where they are. But that has solved all the communication issues, and so I don't lose connection now with the mount.
I'm sure that'll be a great find for some folks. It's a neat secret that I hadn't heard about, so well done, Mike. I don't know if there are any other questions there, but I think your image is beautiful, and it really does cast a neat tone for us as an opener. Look at those colors, guys, that Mike is picking up on, those fringes, kind of pinks and going to slightly red. I'm sure we'll come back to you for another image before it's over, Mike, because you'll be live for us. So well done, brother.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't we jump over to you, Gary? And I know that you've got clouds where you are, but do you want to have the screen, Gary? Mike's got an image going here, but we can give you the screen if you're going to show us a PowerPoint. I bet you've got some astrometry stuff to show us.
Yeah, I'll put up a PowerPoint just to set the scene.
Mike, you want me to drop that off so you don't have to worry about it?
Yeah, so I'm going to try and share here.
Yeah,
so
go ahead, Gary.
So Mike, I think you need to unshare and then
it's unshared. You're good to go, Gary.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I ready to go?
You're ready to go.
All right. Okay. Let's try No, that isn't it. Let's try that.
Look, it's a PowerPoint.
Yeah, sorry guys, but I got to get the PowerPoint set up. Right, here we go. Okay, so do you see that?
We do.
Okay, so this is my gear. A little different from Mike's. My gear is based around a 20-year-old C8 SCT. It's pretty cheap and cheerful. I have a really good, actually. I like the mount. It's a Skywatcher EQ6R Pro. Pretty decent mount. Homemade guider, and then I use the 533 from ZWO for the imaging camera. This setup has changed a little bit recently. I've now got a ZWO electronic filter wheel that's replaced the manual filter. And I've also got a homebrew electronic focuser that I made that actually works really well. I'm kind of pleased with it. Cost me $40 to put together.
Wow.
I like to homebrew stuff. One of the things that I like to try and encourage people to do is that, you know, this doesn't have to be a particularly, I mean, relatively speaking, expensive hobby. You know, I buy all my gear secondhand. It takes a while to get it, but, you know, and I try and encourage people to do similar things because you can really put together a pretty decent setup. And this setup's good for EAA. If you put a decent Barlow in there, it's a good planetary setup. And also this presentation is around photometry and how to transition from EAA to photometry. And it's really a simple conversion. So if you guys are interested in doing some citizen science stuff, doing some variable star measurements, or doing exoplanet measurements, feel free to reach out, because as I was telling Doug earlier on, I'm now a mentor with the AAVSO, so I can help you out. If you become a member of the AAVSO, you can apply to the mentorship program and become a mentoree, and then they assign mentors to you to help you through the process. So I'm pretty pleased with that. And, you know, we'll help you get going and get you to be a citizen scientist and do some really interesting shit. You know, I mean, it's kind of, sorry, probably shouldn't use that word on the live broadcast, but, you know, the images are great and I love doing them and I love showing people those images, but it's also, to me, really interesting how over a number of evenings you can get very up close and personal with a single star, a 12th or 14th magnitude star that probably nobody's looked at in the last 30 years. It really is an interesting and fascinating piece of the hobby. And I find it very, I just find it really interesting. So I am trying to encourage people, if they've got EAA equipment, to dabble in photometry. And it's a really simple process. You do need to put a filter in. You'll need a UV-IR filter to constrain. If you're using a color camera, you're going to need a UV-IR filter to constrain the response of your color camera. If you're using a mono camera, then you need a photometric filter in order to get the appropriate band that you're going to use. Typically, most people use green. And go from there. And from a software perspective, my setup is kind of similar to Mike's. I use SharpCat Pro and OBS. I use EQ Mod and EQ Tour for mount control. I actually do use guiding sometimes for EAA, and that is a necessary part of photometry because you need to image between about 20 to 60 second subs. I use Cart to Seal for a sky map. There's plenty of good packages out there, but it kind of works for me. And the only additions then you need to go from an EAA setup to a photometry setup is you need an accurate time reference. And I use a program called Dimension 4 for that, but there's loads of programs that grab the PC time. And I also then use the free program AIJ for photometric processing. So it does differential photometry. I won't bore you with that, but there's some, and this presentation, I believe, is up on YouTube at the moment. So if you guys go to my YouTube channel, I think you'll find it there. But these are just some useful links with respect to places you can go to help you start your photometry journey. And unlike Mike, I started out in the city of San Diego, Portal 8 skies, so kind of challenging, but you can still do really good measurements and EAA observations from Portal 8 skies. I'm now, I've moved to a new location here now. I live in Blossom Valley, which is where the orange arrow is. We've got some darker skies here. We're about Portal 6. And then to the south and east of me is the San Diego Astronomy Association Dark Sky site, which is the blue arrow. And we're about Portal 4 there, I guess. And I tend to do measurements on various things. I do a lot of eclipsing binaries. They're fairly easy targets. They're a good way of starting out in your photometric journey because they have about a half magnitude variation. Some of them are fairly short period. So you can kind of get your measurements done in a couple of nights. It doesn't really take a long time. But I will say a couple of things here. Yeah, I will say a couple of things here. I'm going to close this presentation, so I'm going to stop the share and just go full screen again. Hopefully that's full screen. I will say a couple of things. Mike and I differ in our approach just a tad in a couple of different areas. And, you know, either way, it doesn't really matter. I do use guiding that I kind of talked about before. I also now have started to experiment with the Optolong Extreme filter, and basically this is a filter that's got two very narrow pass bands based around the hydrogen alpha and oxygen emission lines for nebula, and the results are pretty encouraging. I'm going to do a review paper or video on it, where I'm going to share some thoughts about another little topic of mine that Doug and Mike were discussing with me earlier on, which I won't put on the mainstream. And I think you'll see that the results with these narrow band filters that have been developed for the use with color CMOS cameras is an interesting addition. Now, it is an expensive piece of glass. I paid, you know, it's $300 for the 2-inch filter, and that's not cheap. One other thing that I will share with you before I finish here, and I was just sharing with Mike before I came on. If you're interested in like doing what I'm doing at the moment, being a talking head, so I've got like the head going with the black background outside. These little pucks that you can get from Amazon, they've got a little seal on them. They're LED. I've got it set to red at the moment. These are superb. They're $14 for 4 or 3. They're really good for like lighting up your telescope, lighting up your face if you're doing a video production, marking a pathway if you're doing public outreach or something like that. I've got 6 of these little pucks, and we use them all the time for doing EAA outreach to the public. So I think with that, Doug, I'll finish and hand it back to you.
That's great. You know, you might have a favorite Amazon model. I'll stick one in the chat queue there just to get you started. But if you want to find the one that you like later and show it to us, then that would be great. Gary, maybe I will there. No.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, why don't you? Yeah,
I'll go out to my. Yeah, I'll go to my Amazon order store here and just get the link, and I'll put it on the chat window.
Perfect.
In a couple of
That's
minutes.
perfect. Yeah. And we really appreciate, Gary, the stuff you've done to help bring photometry to the masses. I stuck a few links in the chat panel there as you were talking to try to keep up with you, but you know, like the AAVS VSO and how to join all that. But if you want to look back at that chat panel and put any other links in there, we'll be sure to add those links to the description when this is archived on YouTube for others who might be watching this later after tonight. And I think what you've done for us to bring photometry, like I say, to the masses is really to be admired, because I don't have anybody else in my life who's talking to me about this other than you. So it is nice that you've been willing to do that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to push this. I am trying to push this a little bit, just because, it's been a real kind of revelation for me to go from doing EAA to actual real science. And I have a background of, I did a PhD at university and stuff like that, and many years ago. And so I've got a kind of sciencey background, and I've really found this to be fascinating. And I never thought that I would be just like so keen at looking at the same star for like 6 hours every night for 3 or 4 nights on a row. But when you pull the data and you put it all together and you see what that star's doing, and then you work out that it's actually 2 stars that are rotating around each other, it's like really cool stuff.
Yeah, it is. So we appreciate you being willing to talk to us about that, Gary. It means a lot. So thanks.
No problem.
How about if we jump over to Bill Pratt? Bill, it's nice to have you aboard. I don't know if this is maybe your first one to join us, is it? You said that your weather had been bad there in Huntington Beach, I think, but we're glad to have you aboard. Might have to unmute Bill. See if I can ask you to unmute there.
There we go.
There you go.
Huntington Beach is a lot of fog. I was going to practice some things on Jupiter tonight, and we only live about 1 mile from the Pacific Ocean, so we take what we can get. Conditions were very good 2, 3, 4 years ago. This last year is not so good, so a trip to the desert is needed.
It would be nice to go join Mike. Do you want to show something on your screen? Like, do you have any kind of slides of your gear or anything? Because Mike can drop off if you want to do that.
Well, it's all fairly basic, nothing fantastic or unusual, and I didn't know, I didn't prepare for anything like that.
No problem. Now, you were saying something about you were curious about filters for night glow and haze. I guess you were looking for favorite light pollution filters.
Exactly. I forgot I even mentioned that. Yeah. Night glow and haze, because of course we're in Southern California.
Yes.
And we have some issues with night glow. We do have a Bader night glow filter that does work really well. And also I made a mask over my AT80 scope and made a 25 millimeter hole in the mask. So if I calculate that correctly, 470 millimeter focal length divided by 25 millimeter aperture gives me something, wasn't that around 40 some odd F40. So when I look at this, when I look at Jupiter or the moon, it really makes a difference. And that's something awesome. Simple that beginners can do. It's just a big piece of plastic painted flat black with a nice clean hole in the center.
It's a great idea. You know, everybody's got their own favorite light pollution filter. I put a link in there from High Point Scientific for the one that Celestron makes. But what scope do you have? Remind us, Bill.
It's Astrotech AT80 EDT triplet and a AT115 EDT triplet.
Those are nice scopes. So you're viewing with a 1.5 or 1 1/4 inch eyepiece, I bet.
2 inch.
2 inch.
Everything I have is 2 inch.
Okay. Well, then you'd have to go for the more expensive 2 inch version of that if you're going to go with Celestron, and they are expensive. I think the 2 inch one goes up by like 7 times or 6 times the value. Does anybody else have a favorite light pollution filter, especially in 2 inch, that you would like to stick in the chat or say a word about? If so, just jump right in.
I recently got the L Pro, the Optimon L Pro. Whether I like it or not, I don't know. I'm still kind of trying to only use it. I had a chance to use it. This is really the second time I've had it out. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I use two Optolong filters. I started out with the Optolong CCD CLS filter, which I used for a long while, and I've still got in the filter roll. That seems to work reasonably well. If you really want a high contrast filter for nebula, the Optolong Extreme is a really interesting filter. I've been using that recently, been really pleased with it. And even though you're cutting the amount of light that's coming down into the telescope quite significantly, I'm still able to use 15-second subs and get some really decent images. And the nice thing about it is that the filter kind of jumps out at you and the stars really get reduced in their intensity. So if you want that type of look to an EAA presentation, it works for nebula. I mean, obviously it's not going to work for everything, but it does work for certain nebula.
Yeah. Good. Anyone else have a favorite?
Yeah, I've been using the Optolong L Pro. I'm in about Bortle 7 skies. And I've noticed that it, at least when I'm doing it for the galaxies, it's making them pop a little bit better. A little bit, it helps keep some of the, background a little bit darker. So it doesn't look just like gray, in the background skies.
Yeah.
But I like it. It's been, and I've got the 1.5 inch or 1.25 inch, just screwed in right in front of the ZWO camera.
Great.
It was a little cheaper.
I put the link for the 2-inch bill, the 2-inch Celestron filter there. It's less than I thought. It's $119 apparently there at Agena Astro, which is a lot less. I think that's a good deal, $120. And like I've shared before, I just leave it in the scope the whole time because I'm in really terrible skies here in Louisville, probably Bortle 6. And when you look up in the sky, you can see Orion, and that's about it. And boy, you put that filter in, and every nebula comes out. It's really nice. So for the money, I don't know if we can beat it.
Can you repeat that again? Optolong filter?
Yeah, that was, who was that was saying the Optolong? I've missed the name.
That was there? Me. I don't know, Mike Keefe.
There was a few of us that have the L Pro,
yeah.
And then Gary, I think, was talking about the Extreme.
And then I was mentioning the Celestron. I put the link in the chat box if you want to open up the chat box.
From my understanding, the L Pro is more of a general light pollution filter. You can use it with galaxies and things like that. Whereas I think there's an L Enhance, and then there's the Extreme that Gary was mentioning. I think those are more narrowband filters.
Yeah.
And I'll put a plug in for the ITIS NBZ. I use that on a Celestron 8-inch SCT and with and without Hyperstar. And supposedly, if you look at some of the reviews on that, it has a little bit less star bloat than the L Extreme. That's sort of where its advantage is. And I've been really happy with it on the Hyperstar. I think it's a little bit more of a struggle at f7 and especially at f10 to collect enough light for EAA, but I've still gotten really good EAA images of like Cocoon, for instance, and then on Hyperstar, you can see just about everything in less than a minute. So I keep telling Doug that for his RASA, he needs to just pony up with his observatory and get the.
I hear great stuff about that in NBZ. I'll put a link there to. I think
it's a $299 filter for the 2-inch.
Yeah. Check me to be sure if that link is the right one, Jeff. Thanks for sharing that. I hear great things about it. So there you go, Bill. Anything else that you want to share or ask, Bill?
Let's see. I've been experimenting with Astroberry on a Pi 4, but that's far out from filters. I did try a bag full of old camera filters from 75 years ago, maybe.
Like yellow and red? Mm-hmm.
Well, I did try yellow and red, but the best results I had were very light blue and very light green filters.
How about that?
And they really Again, I put it over that little hole I made for the bright moon, and it really brings out the contrast. And it also worked well on Jupiter. So this is something I had for 50, 60 years in a plastic bag when my brother was in Korea. And I can say that if somebody's on a tight budget, those filters do work. The yellow, I didn't have very good results with. So I stayed with the light blue and the light green. I saved those aside.
That's very interesting. I stuck a little intro article from B&H about filters. They're kind of a photography shop as well, and so I put that in the chat panel. That's a very interesting idea, Bill. Well, it's great to have you aboard. They're from Huntington Beach. Are you right in Huntington Beach? Because that's probably among the worst light pollution that we have, I bet, in our group.
It's I believe Bortle 7, they claim.
Yeah.
Last year it was the 8. However, in 2018, 17, 16, when I began around 16, the sky was much better. I have beautiful Saturn pictures, Jupiter, and lots of nebula. M57 is my prize. M57, I have a very, very nice but beautiful color.
Well, next time, prepare some pictures for us, Bill, if you would.
Well, I have them on this iPad, but I don't know how to get them to you.
Yeah, I think you would just have to share your screen, and you can organize it next time. We don't mean to put you on the spot, but let's let Jonathan do a screen. Mike, he's got Andromeda Galaxy. There you go.
How's it going?
Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and go next?
All right.
And you're from Mesa, right?
Yep, I'm in Mesa, Arizona. So,
okay.
You guys see my screen yet or no?
Not yet, but I bet it's coming. I noticed that Gary's put in the chat panel a video of recent photometry stuff. So, and I also put, Gary, I put your channel link there. So if people wanted to see your general channel, they could find it.
Okay.
There you go.
And
you're
also, I have stuff on the San Diego Astronomy Association YouTube channel as well. So if you don't find it in one place, look in the air.
Right. Nice, Jonathan.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
If I might, just plug in Borrego Springs, the first week of November is the Starry Night event. I've gone in the past. It's 4 nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the Palms Hotel. It's very hard to miss that. There's not many hotels in Borrego Springs. And it's been a very good event. The first time I went, I think there are probably 1,000 scopes up in the parking lot, RVs and hotel people. Anyway, you can check it out. I think it's hosted by both Riverside and San Diego astronomy groups.
I put a link to it, at least that can get people started. I put a link in the chat panel there. Well done, Bill. Thanks for announcing that.
Okay.
Okay, Jonathan, what are we looking at here? Looks like you're dithering.
No, I'm looking at M31. I'm using my setups with the ASI Air Pro on a Nexstar 6SE, just the standard 6SE mount, all as. I've got Hyperstar, and with a 183 MC Pro, I'm using 15-second subs. This has actually been stacked up for quite a while. I think I'm up to a couple hundred stacks at this point. And there's, I am using flats, and I actually tried dark flats for the first time tonight instead of biases. So seems like it's working a little better. I've had some issues with getting some red on the edges and stuff. So I think it's working a little bit better tonight. So, and I've also got the Optilong L Pro filter.
That's beautiful. Everybody's seeing the dust lanes there too, Jonathan. Well done.
Yeah. I'll show you something that's really cool though. Let me switch to photos real quick. There was I had a picture from when I was up in because I'm about Bortle 6 right here.
Okay. And
this is same setup, basically, same camera and everything, roughly same images and stuff. But this is from a pretty much probably Bortle 2, Bortle 3 site up in northern Arizona. So
wow. Is that
There's a
mono?
big difference with the light pollution, you know.
Wow, that is beautiful. So sensitive.
Yeah, that's a really cool image. I mean,
Yeah.
that's almost astrophotography type stuff, right?
This one, the one that I took up there, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It's just live stacking with the ASI Air Pro. I think I was probably doing 15-second subs, and
Wow.
Nice.
I had the filter in there, but I had used flats and stuff.
And that's just
sky flats.
That's just the sort of image you want for public outreach. I mean, that unfortunately with my setup, I've only got a half a degree field of view. So I don't get to see the entire galaxy, but that's just a perfect image for outreach, right? I mean, you've got the main galaxy, the two satellite galaxies. That's a really nice image.
Remind us, Jonathan, when you put that with that 6SE and you put the Hyperstar on there, what does that bring the focal ratio down to?
F2.
F2, nice.
Yeah.
But tell me, if you're not dithering, why is that kind of skewed? You see
So
over
you
to the
talking
left.
about the red. I don't know. I think it might have had something to do with the flats, because I've never seen that before.
Oh, okay.
So it might have had something to do with the way I did the flats tonight. I've been,
I see.
frankly, just trying to learn how to do them and use them, and trying some different things after reading the various message boards and trying to figure out the best way to do flats.
I've seen that happen if you have the dithering engaged. So maybe in one of your settings, it is dithering.
Talking about the little squiggly lines on the red and stuff. Is what you're talking about?
No, I was talking about the way over on the left side. See your image.
Oh, how it turns?
It's on an angle. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah, I thought it had to do with just the way it stacks. It just turns the image when it stacks. I thought, but maybe
yeah,
Alt-Az, right?
That's an Alt-Az mount. That is the alignment, and as the Alt-Az rotates around, you're getting the images skewing around and around and around as StropCat further or ASI Pro aligns it.
Got it.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought that was just a function of the Alt-Az mount.
Got it.
Yeah, you don't see that on an EQ mount.
So, Jonathan, how long have you been doing astronomy?
I took a class in college, and then I had an old telescope, like a old neat telescope that I used for a little while. That it was basically a department store. Telescope's like a 150 millimeter.
Wow.
So 4.5 inches, and then my wife got me the 6SE for Christmas, and so. Living here in Mesa with the light pollution, fairly quickly as I was like, okay, what can I see with this? And I think I happened across like something on cloudy nights, so I happened across cloudy nights because I just wanted to learn about IPs and different things like that. And then happened across something on the Revolution Imager. So I started searching on that, and then I hit the EAA forum, and then it starts talking about, I just kind of got sucked in,
Good.
and it was just like, hey, with all the light pollution, like how can I see deep sky objects, especially galaxies, is what really interests me, and so that's kind of naturally fell into it. So
awesome.
Still having trouble with nebulas, so I'm going to have to try one of the high, like the Electronically-Assisted or something like that, because I don't know, I just can't seem to really get a whole lot of nebulas. So does anybody have any recommendations on good beginner ones this time of year?
Or nebula?
Yeah.
What about some of the planetary? What about some of the planetaries? They're bright.
Yeah.
Well, the ones that I was just doing, in fact, some of the brightest, nicest
Like
ones.
Lagoon?
They're Lagoon and Trivet. They may be a little low. I'm not sure. Where are you at again?
Yeah, I'm in Mesa, Arizona.
Okay, yeah, you're Mesa. So you're south of me. Yeah, so you have no problem seeing those still right now. But yeah, Lagoon and Trifid and Eagle and Omega, they're all right there and aligned right between Sagittarius and Scorpius. And they're nice and bright. They're colorful. So they're a good way to start.
Elephant
definitely.
Nebula is a good position right now, too.
Yeah. And check out M27. That's the dumbbell. You can get to kind of play around with the colors as well there. Really kind of start to tease out the blues versus the greens and kind of play with the stretching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great. Well,
I was going to suggest 27 as well. I mean, it's such a bright target that, it's a great nebula to start with. Once you've got the hang of that one, then you can start going for the fainter stuff.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan, good to have you aboard. We'll pop back to you a minute,
Sure.
later if you have another target for us.
Yeah, I was going to try. I'll put something else on.
Okay. How about now? I guess, Jeff, in Vegas, you probably are in some kind of slot machine haven there. You probably don't have a scope going, do you, Jeff?
I do not. I'm here for a meeting this week, medical meeting. I'm here for like 5 days, and I almost packed all my stuff with me. But the last time I packed it all up and took it to a meeting, I had 5 days of bad weather. So I just left it all at home, and I'll just enjoy the meeting.
Did you fly or drive?
Grand Canyon a couple days after the meeting.
Nice.
So hopefully I'll get some dark skies for the new moon and just go hang out somewhere dark.
Nice. It's awesome.
I haven't had a whole lot of EA stuff lately, but I did add a new scope to the regimen. I got a refractor.
Nice.
I'm sort of branching off a little bit into AP with that. And that's been a lot of fun to play with, but it's an enormous scope, and it's a little bit much to lift out from the garage every night. But luckily, I can just set it up and leave it in the yard and let it run, and I'll break it down.
Which one did you get, Jeff?
I got a Skywatcher Esprit 120.
Oh, those are
It's
nice.
been it's just unbelievable what it does, and I've gotten some really great pictures with it. But the goal is to sort of mimic what Mike does and get my 8-inch on a wedge on the pillars in the yard and just leave it, at least leave the evolution mount set up all the time and just cover that, and use that for EAA while the Esprit captures whatever other
That's
target
awesome.
I want to look at.
You can probably order those blocks that Mike has from maybe High Point Scientific. Is that where you got those, Mike?
They're actually special astronomy specific ones, and I can sell them to you. Get a hold of me. I got a great price on them.
Noise dampening, right?
Oh, absolutely. Vibration dampening, noise dampening. They stay automatically polar aligned. They're just the molecules in them. They're great. Special deal.
I don't know if you guys saw my post in Cloudy Nights, but I did try and I'm an ASI air guy from the get-go. I've been doing this, Doug, since last December, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right.
It's worked. The ASI has worked beautifully. I have no problems with it. And every time I see one of these forums, I'm like, I'm going to try SharpCap. Let's try SharpCap. And everybody tells me, don't do it because what you have isn't broken. Don't fix it. But I got a new laptop last, 6 months ago for work. And I said, let me just load all this stuff on the laptop and try it. And I spent probably 3 nights in the yard trying to get all this stuff to talk to each other. And it just did not work. And so I put that kind of all on the back burner because with all the smoke, the clear nights are pretty rare. But I'll probably try that again one more time. Wow. And then the last thing I'll mention, I've noticed with my ASI Air cameras, I have a 294 MC and a 294 MM, the color and the mono. And I have noticed with subs over like 20 seconds that I was getting a lot of elongated stars. And I thought, well, that was probably just poor alignment or me doing something stupid. And as I got more and more into this, I realized, well, I've got my polar alignment down. Everything's set up. Everything's as dampened as it can be. There's nothing I'm doing wrong. The guiding is good. So something else has to be wrong. And lo and behold, on Cloudy Night, somebody had a post about the vibration of the fan. And I said, oh, well, I am cooling all my pictures when I take them. Let me see what happens when the fan turns off. And lo and behold, the elongated stars went completely away.
You're kidding.
And so I could take subs, all the way up to 5 minutes with the fan off, and I was getting pinpoint stars. And so for anybody that has that trouble, I ordered some elastomeric fan mounts just off of Amazon. They probably cost $8 for 20 of them, 5 sets of 4. And just took the cameras apart and replaced the metal screws with these elastomeric mounts. And I can take pictures 10 minutes now, and everything's pretty round. So anyway, just a sidebar that if anybody has problems with their stars being round, don't forget about the fan being the issue.
Wow, I would have never thought about that.
Well,
that's
thanks
crazy.
For Cloudy Nights for just stumbling on the post that somebody, and I think theirs was with I think it was a 2600 level camera. And same kind of thing. They got their polar alignment down to 30 seconds, and Everything else was ironed out. So the only thing else they tried, and somebody had actually had a program called MetaGuide, which is sort of a guiding collimation program, and they took a video with the fan on and off, and the star is just like, dancing around with the fan on, and with the fan off, it's like, barely moving. So anyway.
Jeff, is that something I just pasted in the chat box there? Is that kind of something that would give folks a place to read more if they?
Let me double check. They're made by Noctua. Noctua makes replacement fans too.
Okay. That's probably not the
right. A couple
right.
people have recommended the Noctua or the Fractal Design fan.
Noctua.
Those are not them. I'll put a link in the description.
Okay. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I don't know if I can delete that or not, but if I can't, if you could put the right stuff in, that would be great.
I'll put the right one in.
Okay.
That's all I have to contribute tonight. Sorry, I'm in Vegas, so.
No, Jeff, just be safe there. If somebody tries to suck you into one of those, casinos with all the slot machines, just make sure that you're not spending your astronomy money in there.
Yeah, luckily I'm not a gambler, so.
That's good.
Good.
That's good. We did have a note here that I think, who was it? Maybe Hemi that was doing some stacking. So, Mike, if you want to drop off, what are we looking at there, Mike, by the way?
This is Omega.
Oh, that's Omega. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to drop that off, and then Hemi's got something cooking, I think. So Hemi.
No, I don't. I don't, because I'm in the middle of the day here in Australia.
Oh, what did you mean when you said?
He was answering the question about the rotation of the image of Andromeda.
Oh, there you go. Thanks for interpreting. So, wait, Hemi, you're in Darwin, aren't you?
I am. I live in Darwin, which is 12 degrees south. But currently it's school vacation time here, so I'm in 16 degrees south in a little place in northeast Queensland called Port Douglas.
Nice.
But it's daytime here. It's just 1:30, so and no telescope on vacation. So I thought I've never logged into one of these sessions. I was trying for the Australia session last time out, but I got stuck in a COVID lockdown zone, and so didn't manage to log on.
We're so glad that you're here this time, Hemi. Tell us what equipment you use. I've forgotten.
Look, I've got a dual rig setup. I'm lucky to have it permanently set up in sort of a rooftop part of my house, and it has a C11 on one end and a ES 102 refractor on the other end.
Nice.
I sort of do probably mainly visual. I'm about maybe 20 or 30% EAA. I've sort of chop and change between EQ and AZ, but it's sort of been in AZ for the last year and a half. I think I finally decided I prefer AZ for what I do.
And I think everybody already is gathering that that's aldazimuth. He's talking about that.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you add a little bit to that, Hemi? I mean, why do you prefer that?
Because I'm mainly visual, and with an EQ configuration, I tend to have my head in funny positions, and often I'm on my 50-year-old knees, which isn't the most fun. And so AZ, it's just much more comfortable visually. But as I said, I'm sort of increasingly, sort of moving to EAA, and I've been doing sort of EAA intermittently for probably the last 2 or 3 years. And of course, with that, it doesn't matter. And I think EQ then gives you the flexibility of doing slightly longer exposures.
Very interesting. And Hemi, I think it's great that you bring the Australian South to us for future Messier marathons. We cannot wait to have you as our ace in the hole for the southern targets. This is going to be fantastic.
Well, I'm just in the southern hemisphere, but 12 South is a pretty good location.
Yeah, for a lot of things.
So Andromeda for me gets up to about 35 degrees, which is really much better than most of the other parts of Australia, the populated parts of Australia, which tend to be in the southeast.
That's awesome. We're glad to have you aboard, brother. How about, I'm wondering, say sometimes you have a scope going. Are you using a scope tonight?
Unfortunately, it is typical Seattle day for me. It is cloudy and drizzly. Well, I don't think it's drizzling, but it's definitely cloudy for me.
So sorry,
so no luck. Now that we're on the West Coast time, of course, it's a cloudy day.
Can you broadcast? Are you broadcasting from the top of the Needle, at least in Seattle, or?
Yeah, I wish. The light pollution there is actually even worse than my home, though.
Oh, there you go. I have to thank you, Say, for the way over the past month you've helped me tremendously with Alpaca Scope, getting it working with Sky Safari. That was all you that helped train me on that. So thank you, Say, for that.
Well, and thank you for pointing me out to that software that I didn't even know existed. It's the one time I've been out with it, it's been great. So
Say is a bit of a programmer. His background is in that and works at that for his job. And he learned about this and figured it out and then trained me in it so I actually could get it working. So, and Say spells his name, you probably saw C-E-Y. Remind us of the equipment that you use, Say.
I've got an 8-inch Smith Cassegrain telescope running 294 MC and MM cameras on it with a 6.3 reducer.
Great.
Like I said, no luck tonight for clear nights.
6.3 reducer. So that puts you at F what?
F6.3.
F6.3.
F6.3, I see. Boy, that's great. Say anything else?
That's exactly the same setup, I think, as I'm using.
I see.
Yeah.
Say anything else that you'd like to say? Anything else you'd like to present?
No, nothing. I don't have that much. It's a busy night for me tonight, so I'm just going to pop in for a little bit, see what's going on.
All right.
I know John. It was West Coast time, and I should at least try to make the West Coast one.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're glad you did. Pop back in a minute if you think of something else. John, I know, said that he was going to be late. He's from Redwood City, trying to figure out anybody else that might have a scope going. We don't have, I guess, let's see, I'm trying to think. Lance, you're in Idaho. Do you happen to have a scope going?
I had to turn my microphone on. No, I don't have a scope going.
Okay. Lance, anything else you want to share? Maybe something that you've been working on? I know you've kind of been gathering up equipment, haven't you?
Yeah, I haven't really spoken much at these meetings, so I thought I'd better take a few minutes here. Okay. I'm a beginner, ranked beginner. I know almost nothing. You guys are light years ahead of me. Back in March, I had decided to continue my long-standing visual exploits and purchase a Nagler to add to my eyepieces. And having frequented Cloudy Nights a little bit, I decided to go there and see if I could pick one up used or something like that. And I ran across this guy, Emerald Hills, who said, I sold all my Naglers so that I could start out in EAA. And I said, wow, I wonder what that is. That was in March. By April, I'd sort of figured out what it was. I'd watched your videos that you did for the marathon and the one in April.
Right. And
I thought, I really want to try this. And I spent April and May figuring out if I could do it. I have a 10-inch Meade SCT that I've had since 2003, I think. It's been a great visual scope. I've really enjoyed it. And I didn't even know if that would really work well for EAA. It's not these fast scopes that you guys work with. It's on an alpha azimuth. When I bought it, people said, you're never going to do any photography with that. I've never taken a picture with it in all these years. So April and May, I started interacting with the group more, listening to what you had to say. Gary, I've learned a bunch of stuff from you on how to set up workflows. You have some nice videos that talk about that from some time ago. So I had fun putting it all together. Then July came and I had some equipment and the fire started and I didn't see clear skies for majority of the summer. And I spent the time putting things together. It all works now. I have set up a very interesting system, which I'll show you probably on the next one, but I'm using a Wi-Fi communication system with an RPi on the scope to handle USB server communications. And it's working really great.
Nice.
One of the reasons I did that was so that I could continue to use Sky-Fi because I'm really addicted to Sky Safari and wanted to have that in my system and got that to work really well. So I have a Wi-Fi system that will broadcast 500 or 600 feet. It's working exceptionally well. I've heard people talk about dropouts, and I looked into that a lot when I first started putting it together. Haven't really seen that very much. What I do have is power to all the devices on the scope, and they are lots of wires hanging down. And I broke one a couple of nights ago, and so I quit and said, that's it. I'm not doing that anymore. And I bought a Pegasus PowerBox Advance, and that's being set up this weekend so that I don't have those difficulties. It's been quite a ride for me. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I've taken a couple of pictures. It's convinced me beyond a shadow of a doubt that I want to continue with this. Once again, I was 2 steps behind Emerald Hills, Doug. I found out about Alpacascope and I went to look at it on cloudy nights, and there was Doug with a video. He'd already tested it.
Thanks to say.
Yeah. So I have that working, and
good.
It's a dream. It's going to be something that I think I can say I tried and I never looked back. I just kept using it. It's really quite remarkable.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's it.
That's very cool. And you don't have anything that you'd like to show us, Lance? Any pictures of anything, or?
I haven't put anything together yet,
Next time.
But I will try to do that. Yeah.
All right. Now I'm just to show you how out of touch I am. Who is this sharing now? Who's sharing their screen?
This has got to be Pat from Utah.
Oh, is that who that is? Good.
I've been dying to see what he's going to show us tonight.
That's great. Alien Observatory. I think Pat is hearing impaired.
Oh, is this the new Stellina?
Stellina.
Oh, that's great, Pat.
Yeah, I recognize that. That's Pat's driveway, and I don't think he has his microphone turned on.
Okay.
And
so we can send him a message via the chat panel. How about that?
Well, he can probably hear us.
Well,
or you don't think? Oh, okay,
don't
maybe not.
I just don't know. He says he's hearing impaired, so I don't know.
He's not hearing impaired. I tried to help him get things set up.
Good.
Week and a half or so ago. He's trying to share screens from phones and pads and whatnot. And I think he's having technical issues with that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
He and I were able to get a little bit working, but not completely. He's done some great stuff.
Yeah, the pictures have been really nice that he's been posting. He's really learning. He's learning a lot about the thing and teaching other owners of them quite a bit as well as he's discovering stuff.
I agree. That's the Phantom Galaxy, huh? It's cool. Pat, thanks for sharing. I'm direct messaging him here in the chat panel, but he's either not paying attention to the chat or Pat, can you hear us? He says Stellina M74 trying for a 1-hour image. Mm-hmm. I'll just say here, if you didn't hear, everybody is thanking you for representing the Stellina in a great way on cloudy nights. That's very cool. Yeah, he was part of the reason why I ended up from the, yeah, he says audio is hard for him, but text is good. So if you want to say something in the chat panel, he'll see it if you'd like to say something about it. It says audio is hard for him. He was one of the reasons in the org that I lead, we actually ended up buying a Stellina for a major donor. And it's partly because of the pictures he was posting. So it's awesome. Cool. I think Patrick might be in Woods Cross, Utah. Stellina is 80 millimeter ED telescope with 178 cam. Mm-hmm. What does that mean, ED?
It's ED glass.
Oh, I see. I see. And auto plate solving, he says.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's an 80 millimeter refractor with a 178 color camera.
Auto field rotation.
And a lot of bells and whistles.
Has dew heater built in. Autofocus, he says. And he's doing 10-second subs here. I think isn't it rechargeable? So you can take it out to a place where you don't have power too, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think he's in the process of trying to get a 20 amp hour battery for it. And trying to get more battery to it so it lasts the whole night.
Wi-Fi, no cables, he says.
That's one of my issues at the moment. My rig now draws close to 100 watts with the dew heaters running and everything else going. It's
he's showing
a lot of power.
He's showing us the Stellina there in his driveway. See,
sitting out in the middle of a light washed driveway.
It is. It's in the middle of a lot of light, and he's got some cameras like the Wise 3 kind of cameras that he's letting us see his whitewashed sky there with all that light pollution. Looks like a Bortle 6 or 7 there.
It looks like a Bortle 12. That looks like about 10 o'clock in the morning.
In the east low, he says. Wow. That's awesome. Well, I'm going to say, well, keep stacking, and we'll come back. We'll come back to you, brother. We'll look forward to seeing how it progresses. So maybe maybe we'll move on to Don. Don's got an image going too, I know.
Yeah,
he is located
I can share if you want.
Where is that? Boulder Hills Drive? What city is that, Don?
So I'm between Boulder and Longmont, Colorado, which is north of Denver.
Boulder and Longmont. Gotcha.
Yeah. So
I'm going to go ahead and drop this if Patrick doesn't mind. I don't think it'll insult him if I go ahead and drop that. And why don't you go ahead, Don, and
all right,
and share with us what you've got going. What's your equipment, Don?
So I'm running an Edge HD right now, 8-inch with a 0.7 reducer on there. Let me figure out something weird looking here. Let me try this. Preview, whiteboard, run. Ooh, let's try this.
And how do you do your remote connecting? Do you have a nice long USB active USB?
No, so I'm running. Hold on, I gotta give my computer permissions to do what I'm trying to do.
One of those remote stick computer kinds of things.
So I'm running wireless, and I don't know if I'm sharing. Oh, here we go. So,
Oh, beautiful.
and that's actually not the OTA that I'm running right now. So that's my Explore Scientific 127, which I really like. Even though we get such high winds on occasion that it actually blew this thing over.
Oh my goodness, that's horrible.
Ouch.
Yeah, but I think it's okay. I'm running a ASI 2600 MC, so it's a color camera. That's actually new. I've only had that for about a month. But prior to that, I was a DSLR imager, and I've got an ASI 174 mono guide cam. That's just on a short tube 80, Orion short tube 80 guide scope. I'm running a Innovations Foresight on-axis guider that I've got my camera on the edge. I meant to take a picture of it tonight beforehand. So, and that's just an Orion EQG mount. So pretty straightforward.
Nice.
There, and it's wireless. It's wireless. I just connect to the network, and I use remote desktop. So
Gotcha.
I'm on a Mac connected to the laptop, and it works. It works well.
Nice.
And where is my remote desktop? Let's see if this works.
Looks like you're in a rural area, Don.
Yeah, Portal 4.5.
Okay.
Guys, I think it edges towards 5 just based upon what little I can see of the Milky Way. Is this being shared? Can you see SharpCat?
It is. Yes. It
Yep.
is.
So you guys are showing all these nice, bright, colorful images. I thought I would go for a magnitude 11 trio of galaxies in Draco. And I like this just because it's called the Dragon Slayer. Sorry, I meant to say Deer Hunter. The Dragon Slayer. And so it's a trio of galaxies. Got an elliptical. You have an edge on. And then the spiral. And this is at the bottom. This is NGC 5985, 5982, and this is 5981. And there's a lot of legend around the names and where the Dragon Slayer came from, and there's some other the Draco triplet. So I thought I would.
That's awesome.
Fingers crossed for it. And half of these stacks were taken through clouds, so it's a bit of a it's a bit of a weak image given that it's been 48 minutes, and you can see my hot pixels and the way they're trailing across the screen. One thing I was looking for, and for all you SharpCat experts, because I've only been using it for about a month, where's contrast? I don't see it.
No, there is no contrast.
Interesting. If you look in the documentation, it actually makes reference to contrast.
No, I don't think there's a switch for it. Is there, guys? Not in SharpCat.
Not that I've ever seen.
But in a sense, your histogram down there does let you play with contrast because you can take the dark.
Yeah, you can sort of compress it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Make the sky blacker with the dark, vertical bar, and then and that does give you an added contrast when you make the sky darker.
Yeah. I've actually gone back and forth quite a bit between SharpCat and ASI Studio. I actually had some issues with SharpCat crashing on my machine, and you can tell I don't have flats. I meant to take flats tonight. I found a bug that Robin actually just fixed when I was trying to take flats and adjust them with a bias frame. It would run off and sort of take hundreds of images before I had to crash the program. Oh, wow. So Robin actually just fixed that in the last update, but I forgot to take
Oh, wow. So you found it and turned it in to Robin, and he.
I did.
Wow.
I did.
Wow.
I'm shocked. It has something to do with using the capture routine for capturing flats if your camera is in still mode, which I would think most cameras would be in still mode when you would do that.
Yeah.
So he found it and
Bill gave me a whole box of astronomy magazines.
Wow.
Are you using version 3.2 or one of the beta 4 versions?
He's on 4.
Yeah, I mean, you are going to get some bugs in the beta versions. There's a bug. Sorry,
he's released 4.0. He's released 4.0 now as actual release version.
It's not beta. The 4.0 899. I think if you go in here and you check for updates, I'm not sure you'll even see 899. Right. You have to go to the website to get this one.
Yes. Yeah, it's a regular main release now.
Oh, because I was running, I think the latest version I was probably running was 892. And there's been an ongoing histogram problem in the display histogram that I've been talking to Robin about, and he seems to fix it, and then there's been a problem again, and it's a truncation of the histogram on the display histogram.
How about that?
But if he's got it now to a full release, I would imagine all those problems are now fixed. I found that the released versions of SharkCap to be pretty stable, but the beta versions definitely have some issues.
Gary, I bet you get along better with Robin because you guys speak the same language. Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, but I do know he's extremely responsive.
He is.
And he's very good at following up on this stuff.
That's right. Don, this is great. You're not running any filters, are you?
No. And the Optolong filters get a lot of attention. Part of my challenge is because of my image train, I don't know where I would put a filter.
I see.
I have to be, because of the reducer in the Edge HD, I have to be 105 millimeters back, and the on-axis guider takes up 66 millimeters. So I don't have a whole lot of room to play with. So I've been thinking about that, and so I haven't really gone down the filter path.
The reason I ask is because you were asking about a contrast switch, and the night that I decided I would try my RASA without the Celestron light pollution filter, it looked completely awash with light, and I put the Celestron light pollution filter back in, and it was like turning a contrast switch. It really made the lights lighter and the darks darker.
Yeah, and if I'm going to take that plunge, $300 a pop. That's truly a buy once, cry once sort of dynamic. So I want to make sure that I can actually make it work. I don't have room for like a filter drawer or anything. I don't know how I would do it. It have to be some sort of a direct connection.
Something from. All right. Well, thanks for sharing this. Let's see. Did we hear yet from? Trying to think. Is that everybody but me that's shared, or is there anybody left that hasn't shared? Patrick, yeah. I think that's everybody that's done at least a 5-minute deal, right? All right. Well, why don't I do a 5-minute deal real quick then? Don, you want to jump off and? I can stop the sharing there if you like, and okay. There we go.
Doug, before you start, I'm going to take the opportunity to drop off as well. I've got a 4 o'clock start in the morning. I'm heading out to go fishing, and I'll share one other thing before I leave. I'm a ham radio operator as well for my sins. So yesterday, I picked up the coolest trailer. I bought a DOD maritime radar trailer with a 30-foot mast, military looking, all the hardware. It is the most incredible piece of hardware I've got now sitting on my driveway. And for a ham radio operator, it's just like I'm a pig in heaven.
People are going to think you are some kind of like NSA specialist or something now, Gary.
Oh, I think so. I'm even thinking of putting a pier on it for the telescope, but it's a pretty cool piece of gear.
That's awesome, Gary. That's a great story.
Anyway, I'll say good night to everybody. It's been a real pleasure to join the stream, and I'll look forward to catching up with you guys again soon.
Good night, Gary.
Good
night. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well, Mike.
We're also ham radio here at K6ACJ.
I'm K6 YOA.
YOA? Okay. Yeah. I'm on satellites and 40 meter HF. So
okay. I do a bit of 40 meter. Well, I do mostly HF. I do summits on the air quite a bit, and then I have a relatively modest setup at home, which is going to get a little bit more complicated now. I've got my surveillance radar.
This is great. All right.
I tried to share a picture now that I figured it out. Can I share one real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay, this. Let me get back into my photos.
Yeah, it looked like it was Saturn up there.
Yeah, that's one of my better planetary. And I got to redo this all over again here. I guess when I jumped out, okay, here they are. I'm using an iPad. So anyway, this is probably one of my better Jupiters. I got the great red spot and a dot from a shadow from one, and that's from my backyard here.
Awesome.
And then that's with I'm not sure which camera I used. I have a ZWO 178 and a Nikon D5600, PowerMate 2X and 4X, and that may be with a PowerMate 4X on my AT80 because I've only had the 115 for less than a year. Now, how do I get to the next picture? Do I have to start all over again? Say stop.
Try swipe right or left or something.
Okay, yeah. Swipe help. I think I have to say stop and I have to do it again.
Okay.
So I have some really let's see photos. I think you have to do the whole thing again. That's crazy. Okay. It's kind of slow. I know you're probably in a hurry. You've been doing this.
No, we aren't, Bill. That's okay.
Let's see, in my best, this is with the Beta. Now, I don't normally do planets, but because we have a lot of bad sky, I got to do something. So this is the moon with the Beta sky and moon filter. It gives it a little bit of an amber tint, but the detail is, I love the moon, looking along the Terminator.
Look at the Terminator.
But my most difficult, which was three nights. There was a gentleman on here a few minutes ago. He said he didn't know what to take a picture of, and he's only in Arizona. I have a whole list because I'm also a Sky Safari user, and so I'm constantly checking Sky Safari. So I believe this is M57. That's with my AT80, probably a 4X.
It's 27.
That's 27? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, 57 looks just like it, and I did pretty good. It's very, very similar.
Beautiful.
It's very small, though. 57 is only 27 arc seconds. I think
really
it's
small.
It's very, very small. I won't go any smaller than so I compare everything to M57. M31 obviously is great for 80 millimeter diameter scope, 470. But right now, I can't get much of anything. I took 2.5 hours of M31 the other night, and I can barely see the color.
Oh,
so,
because of the smoke.
I recently returned from New Mexico, and the smoke goes up to the highest level of clouds. I figure the jet airplanes are flying around 30,000 feet, and the brown gunk is up as high as the highest clouds from western New Mexico all the way to Pacific.
So sorry.
But yeah, well, that's the way, life.
Yep.
So
that's
anyway,
right.
that's you asked about my gear. I'm using a Celestron AVX for the small scope and a CGX for the 115. The CGX is rock solid. I use Sky Safari and the wireless link. I've got a lot of experience with Celestron, and they're pretty much plug and go. But I built a special computer just for Astroberry, and I'm trying to figure out how to use camera management. For example, maybe the object I want, the sky usually, I have an all sky camera I made, and it seems like our sky clears. Oftentimes, there'll be a big break in the fog around 2 a.m. And right now, Jupiter is fantastic at 2 a.m. And my little all sky camera with a 170 millimeter wide lens, if it can pick it up, then
ironic. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm trying to figure out how to go live. And so the camera turns on at 2 a.m. I take X number of images, turns off at 3 a.m. and turn the mount off because I don't want the mount to slew into the limits.
Gotcha. Sounds like a Nina thing.
Is that Nina?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll write that down. And okay, I'm going to look at Nina because
all right.
All right. And I don't care whether it runs on Linux or Windows anymore.
Of course.
And I think Windows is far more stable. So they have these mini PCs that are in the doctor's offices.
Yes.
And I think I'll try to get one of those. The Pi 4 is great, but still not quite fast enough.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I'll do my little 5-minute thing here. This is from last night. And when I got there were deer grazing. So this is the...
Oh, I thought those were your new mounts.
And then you can see the sky was
nice,
really clear. And this is the spot where I set up here in this field. This is where the observatory is going to go, Lord willing, when the concrete guy comes and actually does the slab. There were more deer over there. This is probably a Bortle 5 thing. So there, see the new 11-inch RASA, and this is the Ioptron CEM 70G. That's the Pier tripod that you can get for that Ioptron. It's also an Ioptron. You can see how it's got the built-in guide scope into the mount itself. So you just pull that lens cap, screw that lens cap out. You can see the little power connections there beside it. So that lets you power, for instance, in the forward-facing side, you could power the camera and maybe I forget what else I power from the forward side. In the rear side, I power the dew heater. I power on the forward side. And then on the rear side, I power the focuser and let's see, something else I power out of the rear side. So you can see how you have to actually hook up 2 power points. So I didn't know that. You got the mount power on the lower level base plate there. And then you have to plug into the RA axis another 12-volt power to power all the connections on the saddle. So there I am putting the USB 3 for all the stuff on the saddle, and you pull in the focuser control through that USB 3, and you pull in the mount control through that as well. This is that guide scope from the back, has 3 connections for USB 3 on the back. And that's, you can see the base plate there, basically just the 12-volt for the base as well. The saddle is the standard, Vixen Losmandi plate. Now here I am polar aligning. So it really did polar align fairly quickly in SharpCap. Then I did the autofocus routine in Nina, and Nina, that worked great. This is my little power supply to power the mount. You can see you can dial in the exact power you want. And here I'm taking off the lens cap off the ROS 11. Notice how now I've got all my cabling then built into the ROS 11, so I don't have to have cables, actually flowing from the RASA 11 down anymore because it's in mount cabling for everything. And here I'm using that Octopi Astro interface, and the way he's got it set, you basically mount your camera onto this deal that is sort of like a bayonet thing. You put it onto the RASA, and then you tighten these 3 lateral adjusting screws in, and that way you don't have to screw stuff into the RASA 11's forward elements, those 4 elements that people complain about getting loose, because remember the cameras can get galled onto those 4 elements, and when you unscrew them, you're actually unscrewing the elements and ruining the front of the RASA. Then you have to send it back to Celestron to get them to actually repair it. So here I'm putting, see how those cables now are all mounted onto the RASA, so they travel with the RASA. And then this lens, this dew shield goes on over the top of those cables. And what the dew shield, the Astro Zap dew shield has is a little cutout. You can see that I'm about to miss the cutout on this side. And I finally realized, oh yeah, I gotta feed that into the cutout. They've got those cutouts there set so that the cables, I'm trying to force that over the top of one of my cables. Oh, then I noticed it. You just slide that back, and then you twist those little, and this is actually a metal dew shield, and it holds its shape a lot better than the flimsy vinyl when I was using on the RASA 8. It has the cutouts for the dove, what do they call those? The dovetail bars on the top and the bottom. And also what I like about this metal dew shield is that you can, for not much more, you can buy the lens cap, so to speak, for the metal dew shield. And that way, until you're ready to remove that, you're kind of, until your scope is actually, the dew heater is running, you can keep that cap on. Back here in the back is where I have the dew heater now is the only thing I have. It's one of those dew buster deals mounted on the top dovetail bar. Remember, I used to have that giant project box that looked like an 8th grade science fair experiment. Now it's just that little subtle dew heater on top, which does away with that big moment of weight on top of the RASA. I got all this rigged up, and I was able to do the polar aligning in Sharp Cap, able to do the autofocus in Nina, and then when I went to go back into Sharp Cap, the computer had lost connection with the mount. And so for the next 4.5 hours last night, I tried to figure out why was I not able to talk to the mount again. And around about 1:30 a.m., the clouds rolled in, and it was just socked in. So you know that old saying that we've talked about before, the question that we amateur astronomers ask ourselves, what could possibly go wrong? Here I was with this all brand new equipment, and I hadn't even been able to train it on an object yet to be able to see something, and I couldn't talk to the mount anymore to do that. And so today I went on, I talked to Ioptron and sent them a message. They had no help. They were responsive, but they didn't have any ideas. But I put the message on Cloudy Nights under software that I was having trouble connecting with the Ioptron Commander, which is the Ioptron version of what we do with Skywatchers when we use the Green Swamp software to connect to the server, the Green Swamp server, or the EQ mod kind of connections, and all that's so dependable with Skywatcher. Well, I put a note on the software section. Why could I not do this? And finally, after like 2 hours later, this guy hopped on and said, boy, on my Ioptron CEM70G, if I'm connected to a camera, I can't talk to the mount anymore. So with all this in-mount cabling, lo and behold, this guy had learned that you can't run the camera signal through the mount. You have to run it separately. So now on my scope over here, I have just the one cable running down, which is the USB 3 cable running down, and that'll have to run down. And I've sent a message already to Ioptron saying, I don't know if anybody's turned this in. And the guy said, no, nobody had yet. But it is a verified glitch in their commander that once you are talking to a camera, you can't talk them out anymore. But once I ran the separate wire for the camera, sure enough, what this guy said on cloudy nights, it allowed me to talk them out again. And I could have done 4 hours of observing last night before the clouds rolled in. So anyway, next time I go out now, I'm looking forward to trying all this stuff out. So it's 11-inch RASA and new mount, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it go. And then have the pier coming for that slab and the observatory. I don't know how long it'll take to get all that built, but that's where I am. So kind of exciting to get that sorted out so quickly, really. Last night at the end of those 4 hours, I was already looking in High Point Scientific to see what their return policies were to return this whole mount, because I was mad at them. But now that I can operate with this separate wire, I'm pretty happy again.
Sweet.
Mike, is this you again, Mike?
Yeah, this is Eagle Nebula.
Eagle. How long are we?
36 minutes.
36 minutes on the Eagle Nebula.
Yep.
Jeff Horn says, that's my albatross. Gremlins pour out when I try it every time. Wow.
There's the pillars of creation.
Yeah, look at you going with the pillars.
There's the pillars. Not high contrast. It's a low in the sky and a little bit smoky, but yeah, but the pillars are there.
Didn't you do a thing on Hubble comparing what you could see compared to Hubble? Didn't you do a thing on that?
I try not to, because that just makes me look bad.
No, it wasn't. It doesn't make you look bad.
No, the Hubble gets amazing images. I mean,
but it's $50 million, isn't it? And look at you with your
$1,000.
Yeah, your concrete blocks.
but those are special blocks. I know Jeff
right.
is gonna be out here looking at those. I think probably tomorrow. that's special
okay,
blocks.
now has everybody here had a chance? Let's see, Brian, Frank, John, Randy, David, John, Brian, Michael, you guys are not on. So everybody's had a chance. So now it's just, I guess, open season for our last 27 minutes. Anybody have anything else that has occurred to you as a result of something anybody has shared? We can now share additional stuff or ask other questions.
Actually, I do.
Yes.
Who was it? Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of who it was. I think it was Jonathan, perhaps, who was saying that he was trying, when he did his flats, he was trying the dark frame flats for the first time. Mm-hmm. And for the first time when I set up, I noticed in SharpCrap when I pulled my flats tonight, the option to do dark frame flats versus just bias flats. And I just stuck with bias because that's all I've ever done. And so I don't know the difference. So does anybody know the difference between the two and what the pros and cons are?
Yeah, both.
I think from what I've read, and I have a 294 MC Pro camera, which is a very finicky sensor. And from all the Cloudy Nights posts I've read, that camera does not behave well under certain conditions. And one of those conditions is very short time frames. So obviously bias frames that are much less than a second, your typical bias frame, I don't know, 0.01 or something ridiculous. So the sensor does not behave well under those conditions. And so that's when the dark flats come in, and you try and keep it, above 2 to 3 seconds on both your flats and your dark flats. And I think since I've instituted that pretty early in my course with that camera, I haven't had the trouble of over/under correcting or any weird patterns showing up on the images. And I think a lot of people from that sensor group have really just done away with biases altogether.
Huh. Okay.
Jeff, how long have you been doing this, Jeff? You always seem to know something about everything. How long have you been doing amateur astronomy?
The imaging part, I think since last December for EAA, and then
I thought that's what you had said. How did you learn all this? And you're a surgeon. Aren't you a surgeon on the side for like a side job?
Yeah, that's sort of my habit is digging into rabbit holes and reading too much for my own good. So, the mount vibration, how did I know other than picking it up in some random forum thread?
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, Mike, did you get your question answered, Mike?
I think so. Although
Okay.
Jonathan may be trying to say something.
Go, Jonathan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because so part of why I was trying out the dark flat thing was, so first of all, in ASI Air, and Jeff, maybe you've seen something different, but in live stacking mode, it looks like in order to use a flat, you have to have a bias selected, right?
So the way I get around that in AAP is I take the dark flats as my bias. So you kind of trick the AAP into thinking it's using a bias when it's actually a dark flat.
And that's actually what I did tonight. Part of what's happening, the reason I was experimenting with it too, was because I've tried just the regular bias frames. I have the 183, not the 294. And I think the issue that you were talking about I've read a lot that says that like the 294, you need like at least a 2 second, flat frame. So, and then it recommends the dark biases. And I'm trying to help. There's Dave Elder over in Surprise. He's also on Cloudy Nights, and he's posted some stuff. I think he's been at least on one of these sessions. He has a 294 with a C8. He's been trying to figure out flats and stuff because he's had some pretty bad vignette, and I was trying to help him out with it. So I was just trying to experiment with some different things. I've actually done okay with just kind of using sky flats, frankly. Although I did go ahead and buy one of the cheap LED panels to give me the option to be able to do it at night. I've just used traditional bias frames, and it seemed like it was working okay. The only thing I've noticed on my images is I seem to see a red tint on the edge, but I'm not exactly sure if that's coming from flat frames or bias frames or some other artifact of some kind. It may even be that little red light that's on the camera, possibly with the Hyperstar. I don't know, but yeah, I'm still trying to experiment. And when I kind of get
if you're doing flats with the Hyperstar, the red light will bugger up your flats. And so there's a guy on here a couple times named Sanjeev who actually took his camera apart and put a piece of chewing gum on the light. That was his DIY fix, if you remember that, Doug.
Yeah, I do.
But yeah, you've either got to use black electrical tape or knock out the light, however you need to. It even comes through the USB ports.
Yeah, I noticed that tonight because I put a little piece of electrical tape over the light
it's
itself.
It's likely where your red glow is coming from.
Okay.
Wow. That's crazy.
So yeah, I mean, if anybody, I think I'm also trying to, for Dave, try to come up with kind of a workflow for him that's kind of straightforward that he can use, So, Jeff, I think you have probably the closest setup to, you got a C8, right, with the 294?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I don't know what kind of flat panel you're using. I use a LumaGlow 10-inch panel. It's not.
I just bought like a cheapo $20 one from Amazon.
I tried that first, and it was it poorly illuminated uniformly. So the edges were really bright. The center was not as bright. I got poor results with the Amazon tracing pad. So the LumaGlow is middle of the road. It's not a Ferrari, but it's not a Yugo. So somewhere right in the middle. I think it was $115 or $120. And I've had pretty flawless performance from it. It's a flimsy panel. You have to kind of make your own support for it. It comes with an acrylic pad. Yeah, it's been pretty good.
Okay.
Wonder if they make those in a slightly larger. Trying to look those up right now to see if you can get those for. In other words, now that I have an 11-inch scope, huh?
Yeah, I can't remember if they make a bigger one or not. I know they make a smaller one for refractors.
You said a LumaGlow?
LumaGlow.
LumaGlow, okay. LumaGlow, I see.
See, I think the difference between like a traditional bias and the dark flat is that the dark flat is basically where whatever settings you take with your flat, basically then just cover your scope up and take your dark basically with the exact same settings, right? Whereas with the bias, you're usually taking the cap on the camera or whatever on your system. Take very short exposures. If there's someone who knows more about it, feel free to explain, because I'm still kind of stumbling through it myself.
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Mike, we like the way you've used the sequence in 4 different stages. Like you have your next target sequence and so on.
Mm-hmm.
14-inch. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jeff.
we have a 14.
Nice.
So what's he doing? What exactly is he doing with the sequencer?
Well,
So
Mike,
with
why
this
don't
with
you
this
explain
with
it,
the
Mike?
sequencer here, you can actually set up in SharpCap to have a certain set of sequences occur. So when I am going to the next target, I'm typically always having to turn off my live stack, set my exposure to 1 second, crank the gain up so that I can find the target, et cetera, et cetera. And well, let me actually just pick it up here. So I'm always having to go through the same steps every single time. And then when you come back to, and then when you finally get centered on a target, now I have to set the gain back, set the exposure back, set the display histogram back, et cetera, et cetera. So it's always the same sequence of steps over and over and over again. Using the sequencer in SharpCap, you can now just fully automate that. So here is
you're setting the exposure down in order to do
to find a target.
Okay.
So I set this.
You're using that for the solve.
Well, sometimes I can solve with a brief 1 second exposure. Normally though you have to kick the exposure up. But when I go to a new target, I want to set my exposure down to really short so that when I move the scope, I can see things moving and I can see where I'm moving the scope. And you have to make up for the fact that you have such a short exposure, you want your gain to be maxed so you can see it as bright as possible. You also want your histogram to be adjusted fairly aggressively, again, to bring out the contrast and the brightness so you can see targets. So you're just going through the same number of steps over and over and over again to find a target. And then once you're on the target, to set it up for actually capturing your images. Yeah. So, I just set, so this is my, sequence right here for, beginning to stack an image once I've found it. The gain goes to where I want to do the stacking, exposure to 60 seconds. The display histograms get back set to to reset position basically. And I start the stack. I wait for 2 seconds and then I reset it, which cancels out, gets rid of the old stack. And so those are the steps that I used to do individually every time I went to another target. Now I just select one thing and boom, 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 it does it all automatically. So I'm loving the sequencer.
Yeah, I'm a cheater. I actually use Sequence Generator Pro, and I use the framing capabilities in there. Mm-hmm. I center on the target, which means I have to close the camera in SharpCap, go into Sequence Generator. But this way, it'll plate solve right on the object.
Nice.
Right. Yeah. So in this case, like I'm going to go to a new target, so I'm going to run the recent, and I have these for both of my 183 mono and the 533. So I'm going to go to the next target, 533, which is automatically going to set my exposure to 1, gain to max, and then crank the display histogram to be very aggressive so I can see really bright objects. And now I will go over and actually move to the next object, which in this case I'm going to try for M31. And then once I get there, I will run the sequence that actually starts the stacking. So I really like doing the sequencing because it just saves me a whole bunch of clicking and a whole bunch of steps every time I change targets.
Got it.
Anybody else have any questions? Mike, I was trying to capture screenshots of your sequence there because, to be honest, I tried to use a sequence once, and whatever I was programming in the sequence, I had an entry that threw me off, and it wasn't working. And then I just ran out of time. I didn't ever go back to it. So I'll commit to trying to pick that up again because I have felt that I go through this certain routine every time. So I'll commit to trying to, follow in your footsteps there, Mike.
Yeah, and I can certainly give you my sequence. I believe the sequence files are shareable.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
They're just little text files, but they are shareable, so I could actually just send them to you. The ones that I'm using.
Fantastic. I'm going to send you an email right now and ask if you wouldn't mind that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I can. Let's see. Can we actually share those in here? I don't know.
You might.
I'm going to try doing a refocus right now. So, and then I'm going to try and get him 31.
So do you use a bouncing off mask still, Mike? Yes, he took his headphones off. Next month, you guys probably saw in the email, it'll be the way we do this, it'll be the turn for the eastern part of the United States. And I pointed out that the 6th and 7th of November that's the very weekend of daylight savings time ending. So it just seems like that's too complicated for us to try to help everybody figure out, am I in or out with daylight savings and what time it changes. And so let's just go with the 13th, Saturday night, the 13th, and avoid, and it's just a quarter moon that night. So let's do November 13th, Saturday night, 9 to 11 Eastern Standard Time. That'll be Eastern Standard Time by that time. So I'll put an announcement of Cloudy Nights to remind everybody. And we should start planning next month, I bet. We should start our planning process for the Messier Marathon if we're going to do it again, because, we'll want to plan out our strategy with all these different people now that we have. I think we have like 55 or 56 people in our mix that can help us. So really, if everybody would participate, it would mean that we just do a couple of targets each. That would be fun, wouldn't it? If we did a couple of targets each for our time zone, then this would not be so hard. And we would illustrate again the way EAA with a team beats, individuals all the time. I mean, you guys are aware that this group was the only group that did all 110 objects this past March for the Messier Marathon 2021. We're the only group that did it. So I think EAA rocks.
Never too early to start planning for next year.
That's right. We'll need to sort out our strategy.
We'll have enough people probably for like one person per target.
That would be awesome if we did. Yeah, there's the Batanov mask diffraction spikes.
I'm going to say good evening if you can hear me.
All right, we can, Bill. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. I want to go out and check Jupiter and see if there's a break in the fog. Thank you very much. Wonderful. I learned, got a lot of notes here, and hope to join in again in November 13th.
We look forward to it, Bill. Thanks. Good luck with camera management.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to try that. I've been reading about Nina since you mentioned. Bye-bye.
Bye. So, Jeff, is your event, if you don't mind my asking, is your event in Vegas related to your surgery career then?
Yeah, I have to get so much medical education every couple of years, and so this is my year to brush up on my hours. So
getting your CMEs.
When surgeons do that, do you guys like put a mannequin on the table and you like all get around and practice, or what?
Mostly PowerPoint stuff.
Okay.
There are a couple of live cases from different places. I came here in 2019 and there was a case from Stanford going on, a case from Germany. So yeah, all over.
Wow. And you do vascular, right?
That's right.
Yeah. That's quite a feat that you managed to keep that 60-hour-a-week job going while you do this while you do the 70-hour-a-week job of astronomy. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and we're pretty slow right now with all the COVID stuff. Our hospital's almost to the point of shutting down elective cases. So,
oh my goodness.
Hopefully we'll get back to work here in a couple weeks.
Wow.
Jeff, where are you at?
I'm up in Billings, Montana.
Okay. I thought you were.
I've had to do a couple of focus adjustments because unfortunately my focuser goes flopping almost not upside down, but it's laying on its side when I'm at this angle, and so it doesn't adjusting focus is a little bit of a challenge. So that's why I've had to go through a couple of iterations of that. But
gotcha.
This is M31 now.
Striking.
And my camera does about a degree, so it's a little bit less than the full thing, but that's 1 minute.
You have the 533, you said?
Right, yeah. 533 and just a titch over 600 millimeters of focal length, so that gives me right about a degree. A degree wide by a degree tall since it's a square sensor.
Gotcha.
But some pretty nice dust lanes. So,
well, I learned tonight I'm going to try to save my pennies and get an official, Jeff endorsed Illumiglow panel.
So we come away from these meetings needing to spend money. Is that it?
That hurts me. Yes.
Expensive Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
The most expensive Zoom meetings on cloudy nights.
What I hope to do is mount that on the side of this little 8-foot dome thing, and then somehow train the scope to make that the 0 position, so that when it returns to that position, I can use that as the position and shoot those, when I start or when I finish, before I cover up the end of the scope. Have it.
If you don't change your imaging train, you shouldn't have to retake them.
Good.
Every time.
Good. This guy, Keith, that does these Octopi Astro interfaces, he is a character. He evidently he's retired, and he is a machinist. So he machines this aluminum stuff just like it's going out of style, and giant hunks of, I guess this is some kind of stainless steel and aluminum. I don't know. But he gets like $1,100 for this interface that he does for RASA 11 owners. And he sent it to me to try out. And he said, now when you do this, Doug, you can run it to one end of the screws and then run it to the other end, and then just put it in the middle, and that'll be your rule of thumb as to where to start. And I was running it to the other end, and the screw came out, So I wrote him and I said, what do I do when the screw comes out? Because I can't get it restarted. And he kind of, you could tell he was kind of saying, we shouldn't have done that. I said, well, I thought I was supposed to. So now I've sent him the measurements using my calipers. Please tell your clients not to go out past this measurement. It's like 13 millimeters down to 7 millimeters, and then 10 is where he wants it. So I think now I've got this interface figured out, but boy, at the beginning, that was quite an adventure for me with that camera interface thing.
Wow.
I will say it's amazing how much all these bits weigh. I mean, you're talking about machined aluminum.
Yes,
and that's a little bit lighter weight, but when I added this refractor, it's certainly more than I thought it was going to weigh with all the bits and pieces on it. And luckily, the EQR managed to just fine. But I think I'm sort of at the limit of the mount. Luckily, I'm done for a long time, but it's heavy.
I bet.
You said it's a 120 you've got, Jeff? Yeah, 5-inch. That's a big refractor.
That is. I bet that's beautiful. I've admired those Skywatcher Spree things. Well, guys, why don't we, unless somebody has something else, why don't we go ahead and close out, and we'll look forward to next time. Thanks a lot for being a part of this. If you haven't visited Cloudy Nights before and you're watching this video, by all means, do go to Cloudy Nights forum and go ahead and register and visit the EAA forum, of course, and we'll all look forward to meeting you. And if you just want to kind of read the posts there for a while and get to know the EAA forum, why, that'd be fine as well. I think that's probably how we all start, but we look forward to seeing you on there. Be sure and also take part in these Zoom meetings. You can see the link each month that we post in the EAA forum for upcoming broadcasts, and then you can sign up and join us. We'd love to have you. So thank you guys who are part of this live, and for anybody who's watching this recorded, thanks for being a part of this.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
See you
Thank
guys.
you, Mike, for all your images. Good luck in Vegas, Jeff.
My pleasure.
All right, we'll see you all later.